The Notcast, life, love and misery and deep shit.
Do you ever wonder, what the fuck am I doing here? Is this it? Maybe you've got the car, career, house, family and friends, everything that should make you happy. But still, there's this tenacious sense of being trapped, stuck, lost, or just a bit bloody empty. Welcome to the Notcast, where two therapist coaches, aka theracoaches, lay bare their psycho-spiritual journey of struggle, strife, and realization in their soul search for the keys to a happier, more fulfilling life.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Notcast.
Well, episode 1, version 2.
I was supposed to say the title then, but it's okay.
And we're off to a great start.
It was easier the first time.
Episode 1, what the fuck is coaching? 5 reasons you don't need a therapist, you need a coach. For anybody who's listening to this because you're already seething, fantastic. Enjoy what will ensue. So, a bit of background to this. We actually already recorded 5 episodes of the Notcast, but on reflection realised that we wanted to re-record them. And that was because basically we wanted to be more authentic. And the best way to describe this is because in kind of finding our feet, and I mostly say I need to take responsibility for this and say finding my feet. The structure was kind of come up with the title and then do a lot of Googling and see what the internet's saying about stuff. And that was more taking precedence over what we were, that was taking precedence rather than the sharing that me and Amy had to do. And what we realized is that this is going to be a lot more beneficial if we bring ourselves to the episode rather than share what shit you can already Google on Google.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for saying that straight. Much appreciated. Yeah. So welcome to our Notcast space.
So this is episode 1, version 2, and mostly because you'll never hear episode 1. Well, I say never. You know, there might be some. Maybe when we're rich and famous, and we're like I don't know, like episode 212 or something. Maybe we'll do a like vintage episode release or something. But until then,
it could be worth a lot of money.
Oh, we can but dream.
Love it. Okay.
So what the fuck is coaching?
What the fuck is coaching? What is it?
Well, when I thought about this, I was like, what's coaching to me? And I was kind of brainstorming on it, and I came up with things like it's about connecting, it's about relationship, it's about seeing new perspective. And for me, it's something around creating a sacred space for trust to be able to create something new and to see new perspective. It's something like that.
I love that. Because the first 2 words that I thought of were connection and relationship as well. So at least you and I can say we understand what coaching is.
In our world.
In our world. That's what it looks like, in our bubble. Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah. So for coaching, when I thought about it, when I reflected on it, obviously the first word that comes up for me is love.
As always.
As always. As you will see as we go through the episodes, my experience of it has always been love, like a loving connection. Yeah. So for me, it's a space that is held with love and enables a container that's safe for exploration on what it is to be a human being. All the shit and messy stuff and all the absolutely amazing stuff that goes with being a human being. And it is if you do it the right person, I'm going to add that caveat, it is fucking life-changing.
Yeah. Do you know, oh, like, I can't help it when you're like, if you do it with the right person, it's fucking life-changing. I'm like, oh, you don't want to know where my brain went.
Fuck off. It's not that episode yet.
What's that episode? We didn't talk about that episode.
Oh dear.
But no, I take your point, and I think that it points to the fact that it is about a relationship. It's something that I make a really big point of when I talk to anybody. Before they become a client of mine, I'm always like, it's about the connection. Like, it is about, and if that connection's not there, like, it doesn't matter, what skills you've got, or how much of a good therapist you think you are, or someone else says you are, or coach. Like, if the connection is not right for, or not at, where it needs to be between those two people, then you're not going to get where you need to get to. That's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah. And I guess therefore the premise of therapy or coaching is the ability to build that relationship without our own bullshit getting in the way.
Or at least to be able to face your bullshit whilst doing it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's transformational. It's a journey, right? I guess the words that kind of come up are transformational and flow, and obviously connection, and I guess the other side of it, which is about exploration and fun and play and the possibility of what a fantastic relationship can look like. Because it models. For me, it's a model. You're modeling a relationship, and respect and boundaries and all of those things. Yeah. So I think it's a great space to kind of be really, really curious and look at things that you might not look at in any other environment or space that you are in.
Yeah. Well, it's something you said, a word you said earlier where you said about it was safe, you said, and I think about safety, and I think that's a really key aspect when I think about my personal experience of just, life, but any relationship really. It's like, if there's a sense of safety there, then there's the ability to be open, to be vulnerable, to grow, but to be myself. Whereas if there's not that sense of safety, then those things can't happen. And so I think that's massively important. But something else you talked to about, what were you saying? About modeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is true about modeling relationships. But then at the same time, I think also what I'm learning, like when I look back at when I was first a therapist, like I was still learning about relationships.
Yeah.
And so there were things that would come up where I'd be like, oh shit, like I don't even know how to deal with this in my personal life.
Yeah.
So now I have to, learn how to deal with this now. A trainer said to me years ago, your clients will keep bringing you your own bullshit until you sort it out. And I found that very true. But I still find it nowadays, even, as much as I look back and I'm like, I've grown so much in my ability to understand and show up in relationships and model relationships, in a way has grown so much. But yet there are still things that come up as like, oh, I've not experienced this before. Like, what do I do in this? And I have to really go like present with myself and be like, what? How do I show up here?
Absolutely, and I love that. And I love that because I know that it works two different ways. Knowing lots of different therapists and coaches, and I guess there's that real thing about always being on your own journey, and always being aware of our own bullshit that gets in the way of building a relationship that is supportive and beneficial to somebody else. And I think that for me is a constant exploration of my own bullshit, what gets in the way of me being able to build that relationship. Or with certain clients, if things are coming up, it always comes back to it's something about me. Yeah, it's my shit. It's my shit, not your shit.
It's my shit being reflected back at me through you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's been something that's really important to me. And I'm going to put it out there and say that I see different versions of it. One version is I read all of this stuff in a book and I did lots and lots of training courses. And I'm just regurgitating this stuff. And for me, that's a doing process. I do this to people.
I'm the doer.
Yes. I am in a, authoritative position and will tell you what to do. And then there's the other where it's a genuine, authentic journey together, where I am your guide and I'm always kind of basing it on how far I've embodied my own shit, to be fair, and how deeply I've looked at what it takes for me, what it takes to be a human being on every level. Because it's not easy.
No. It's funny, when I think about when I first trained as a therapist, that was definitely me. I mean, I'd been to therapy in the past, but when I first trained as a therapist, I'd got my bullshit had got around that by being like, don't worry, I've learned all this stuff. I can do it on myself. I don't need someone else. Which was really about me, me and my trust issues and avoiding somebody getting close to me and seeing my stuff. But I didn't see that at the time because I'd made sure I'd like overstudied and was well practiced, so I knew all the scripts and I knew all the interventions and all that stuff. And that did work, and I was able to help people because I was given a pretty given a pretty good framework to work within. And I did learn just through, because I did really want to help people, and I was good at connecting people with people. That was something that I was able to do. So I did learn. I did learn through just doing. But there were things that would come up that were, I'm like, oh yeah, again, like my clients bringing me my own bullshit, that I realized now I just couldn't speak to at a level I can. Like I remember every time fear of failure coming up, and I was following the script, as it were. I was following what I would do, because I was taught a really like an NLP based thing, which is kind of how do I put it? Like, you don't necessarily need to know the client's story because in a way it is a coaching based thing in that you help them find the answers and where the holes are and what they're looking for. But I still didn't really feel I could speak to what that journey looked like because I still had a massive fear of failure. And what I've learned in the last few years is, when you go on that own journey, like I could still speak to my experience, but some of the things I've now got much better handle on. Like now I really understand, or I feel I understand, fear of failure a lot better and how that whole thing works. Like I can speak to that at much more of a congruent level than I could back then. Because like now when that comes up, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that's not about. And not I suppose not also, well, two things actually. Not that I've conquered it and I'm like, oh, don't worry about failure ever. I think the other thing that happened is after going on my journey and starting to face my own bullshit properly, I've now become more okay with my bullshit. So I can speak honestly to that. So now when a client comes up, and like before, the idea of like when I was first a therapist, I was still getting depressed, but then I wouldn't share that with clients. And I had real like imposter syndrome. Like, how can I help people with depression when I still get depressed? But that's before I really understood depression. So it was I couldn't speak to it because I was afraid of, I was still thinking at some point I'd magically make the ability to get depressed go away.
Yeah.
And obviously I don't see it like that anymore. So it's I'm more able to speak to what's actually going on for me now. Like I'm actually more able to kind of tell on myself rather than put this idea of being okay up, this mask on.
Yeah.
Which I think helps, right? Because now I'm being more human rather than pretending I'm superhuman.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing, though, right? It's a thing that I guess when you've got a title like coach or therapist, I don't know, like I feel like there's that, because I felt that, like that pressure to almost be like, well, I have to be fixed. Yeah, I have to be fixed. I have to be fixed. How can I show up and, you know, help other people if I've got all this shit going on and I can't deal with this shit? So I have to be at a certain place in my life to be able to go out and do this to other people and fix them, because that's where I kind of started the journey. It was like, if I can fix other people, somehow I'll fix me through all of that. So yeah, and I guess it's frightening. It is frightening. I found it quite frightening to kind of really look at myself in the mirror, honestly, and go, there's all this stuff. And yes, some of that stuff is triggered sometimes when you're in a session with someone, or yeah, and feeling like I always have to wear that mask and that it's my shield somehow. Somehow I have to appear a certain way if I'm doing a certain thing, and I can't not be that. And that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it really is.
I was with a client not long ago, and I was telling her about how I was on a group call, and it was the first time we met everybody, and there was an introduction and go around and, you know, say who you are. And I was sharing with her how when it was my turn, that I just shared, you know, I'm normally not very comfortable with these kind of things, because the first off, like, I can get a bit insecure, and I just spoke to that, and actually just by sharing that I felt a lot better and was then able to talk more confidently and calmly about what was going on. And she said to me, like, I'm really surprised at that. I was like, why? And she was like, because, you know, you're just like this guru. And I'm like, I'm really not. I'm a human fucking being. Like, I've still got bullshit.
Yeah, because that's the opposite side of it. Because I guess when I started therapy as a client, I know I walked in with that thing of like, surely you've got your shit together. And I can remember being let down, in inverted commas, when I sort of thought, oh, you're just like human. Like, judgment, you know, judgment, please.
I say, because I was exactly the same. I was like, what do you mean you're not Superman? I was coming
what do you mean you still cry? Like, surely you're just always happy. And I guess that's the thing, right? Because I find that a lot. In different ways. So one way, it would, like, sometimes talking to clients, used to, less now, because I'm more about sharing stories now. But it's like, well, it's okay for you. It's okay for you. And it's kind of like, no, because it's still the same. I still feel unhappy, and there's days which are shit, and things are still challenging, and I still have to sit through that shit. But I have a process that I can use instantly now and kind of look at what is actually going on for me. I'm not just projecting it outwards into the world and onto everybody else, even though that may happen, like, every now and again. But yeah, it's at that level of, yeah, I'm not superhuman. I'm just a human, just like you.
No, I get that. And I agree. It's like that whole, I'm still human, life still happens to me. I can still, you know, I can still get all up in my head about shit. Like, I feel like I understand things better than I did some years ago. And so when it's happening, I can take it less seriously. But like, that's sometimes, maybe more often than before, but am I immune to stuff? Like, if I found out a family member that I really cared about died, would I be able to be like, nah, c'est la vie? Probably fucking not. I'd probably be in bits.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be a bit weird if I wasn't?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Because actually, is the reality that you want to know that they're human and that they actually understand on that level that, no, I understand how life works, rather than just going, no, this is the place you need to get to, this place of just no emotion, you just deal with everything. And I think that sometimes maybe that's the premise, right? Some people have that as an assumption in their head, that you kind of, it's really just about getting to that space where it's like nothing affects you. Life kind of just goes past and everything's always okay in your world because this is what you do, or if that's the magic fix to stuff. And it's like, I'm going to own and say, I feel a lot more than I used to.
Yeah. Well, I definitely felt that, because that was coming from this place of, I used to feel so not good enough and just not okay. And in my head, the solution to that was to be good enough, which translated to I need to be perfect. And so the way yeah, well, so I mean, obviously saying that out loud, I was like, well, I know nothing's perfect, but that's, because it was never good enough, that's where the logical conclusion was. So yeah, in my mind, it was this idea that I should be able to be okay with this. I should be able to be better. I should be able to, and basically I should be able to be superhuman.
Yeah.
And I did on some level. I expected that from anybody that I went for help with. And ironically, I got caught in this kind of paradox whereby, because of that expectation, if I ever saw anybody who was human, I'd likely write them off and be like, wow, they're not good enough. But then if I saw somebody who appeared to me to be superhuman, I'd use that to beat me over the head and be like, well, I'm never going to be able to be as good as them. So what's the fucking point?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, I can't help but, yeah, it's just like, wow. It's very real. It's very real.
Brains, man, who'd have him?
Huh?
Brains, man, who'd have him?
Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, what do you love about coaching?
Oh, what do I love about coaching? It's a good question. What do I love about coaching? Lots of things. Is this before we do the talking about coaching and therapy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love seeing people transform. I love seeing people get a hang of their bullshit. Like there was a client that turned up the other day, and the first few times she'd come to mind, I don't know, you could see her energy. She was like nervous somewhat, and as soon as we'd start talking, she'd get upset, and then she'd get quite annoyed at herself, and so we were looking at that. Anyway, we did some work. Something definitely shifted for her, because the last time I saw her, just when I opened the door, when you can just see someone's demeanor's changed, and there's just this confidence and radiance, and she was perky and saying stuff, and there was just something about her. And she sat down, she actually started ranting about a couple of people, but it was not like, as much as you could be like, oh, you shouldn't rant, like it was coming from this place of power, of personal power, of like, she was like standing up for herself as if she'd gone, right, enough, kind of thing.
Love it.
And it was just fucking brilliant. Like, it's moments like that where I'm like, fucking yes. Like, this is why it's worth it, because you've suddenly realized, like, you're not at effect at all this shit. You're suddenly realized, I can do something about this.
Yeah.
That's what I fucking love about coaching.
I love that. Great response.
What do you love about coaching?
Oh, wow. As a coach. So as a coach,
are you making that distinction?
Yeah. No, I mean, as a coach versus being coached.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop trying to be controversial.
But please.
Okay. For me, it always comes back to love, because it's like, for me, it is about self-love. Yes. Don't make that face.
They can't see my face.
I know, that's what I'm telling them. Okay. So for me, it is the moment that I see a human being realize that the love is within them.
Yeah.
And it always has been. And that they are lovable. And that they are loved. And that can never be taken away from them, regardless of what else might happen in their life, just this same thing. It's that same thing of suddenly it's like they radiate from this whole different space. And everything becomes possible. And I absolutely love that. When life becomes possible, living becomes possible. And my example today, I had actually a session today where I did a kind of catch-up, check-in kind of scenario with somebody that I've worked with. And she came on and she just looked different. You know, and just talking about herself, full of love and full of worth. And it just is like, fuck yes, this is what it's about. And to have a person that when I first saw them really didn't like themselves, to them being able to sit there. And I know that at that point it was like, oh my God, it's so cringy to even think about loving myself, to a point where today it's just like, yeah, I love myself. It's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. That to me is magic.
Yeah. For me, it's like, it's that the light in them that you knew was there, that you got glimpses of, they can finally see it, and you can see it shining.
Yeah, and they
as
can
cheesy
see...
and cliche as that sounds, I think that's how it actually looks to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are ready to create something completely different. Yeah.
So, question I have for you then, Amy, is how for you, when you compare therapy and coaching, what are the differences for you? Or what's one difference? I don't know, pick two. Answer whichever question you like, however you'd like to answer it. How do the two compare for you?
See, it's difficult because I guess in the way that I would approach it, they're both relationships. So I know in my head, logically, when I've looked it up, it's kind of gone, therapy deals with psychological issues. And it's kind of like, but that's not always what it is. And coaching deals with goals and is future looking, and it's kind of like, but that's not always what it is. So I guess I'm going to answer that by saying I don't like to put boxes around things. So I'm not going to box it in.
Right. I suppose, see, so I was reflecting on this, and fundamentally I agree with you. I think it's just labels. But I think for a long time my labels weren't very helpful. Because I realised even not too long ago that I didn't really like the label life coach, because somehow I had the idea that life coach was this airy fairy, just nonsensey kind of thing, which is it's just pure judgment based on fuck knows what, right? I don't know. I don't know why, right? But what I just say, when I think about therapist and coach, and that's why I'd never called myself a life coach, it was just I'd be the wrong coach or a therapist. But when I trained as a therapist, I think I'd always wanted to be a therapist, because there's, to me, probably because I didn't understand what a coach would be, but therapist for me seemed like someone who cared and helped people, or provided care and helped people. But when I first studied as a therapist, and I'm not sure this is what was being taught, but this is what I learned and what I understood, was that therapy was about doing stuff to somebody. It was about fixing. Even though we'd say, oh, you're not broken, we don't need to fix you, there was still some element of fixing. And this, in a way, maybe it was somewhat inherent in that it was all about interventions. It was all about listening to the client and waiting till they talked about a certain thing or said a certain thing, and then looking for the place where I did an intervention, where I did a technique. Oh, here's the problem. We'll dive in. Here's my technique. I'll do that. Now it's fixed. Come back, and now you feel okay. Oh, you're not okay. Let me try another intervention.
Got it. Yeah. Got it.
And so it was very much coming from like the power, as much as I would say to the client, like, oh, it's about you, and you've done all the hard work. And I did believe that on some level, but on another level, it was like the power is in my intervention. I didn't necessarily believe, I suppose I probably wouldn't have been so arrogant to go like, oh, it's me, I'm an amazing therapist, or at least admitted it. But I did believe the power was in what I was doing as such. I didn't really see that for me, the power was in what they'd seen. The power was in the change in them. And that's for me, when I trained as a coach, that was the real shift for me. And that was a massive, massive fucking mind fuck. I remember when I was starting to play with this, because there was something in my head as I started to play with some of the coaching concepts. It was like, I'd be with a client and there was something still in my head going, surely I can't just have a conversation with them. Because that's what counsellors do. And we know just counsellors just ask you how you feel about everything, and that doesn't change anything. Like all this complete judgmental bullshit stuff, right? But over time, what I started to notice, that's when I started to learn, oh, change doesn't happen because of the intervention. Change happens through insight. Change happens through realization.
Yeah.
And over time, I started to notice, do you know what, in a way, it kind of almost, not that it doesn't matter what I do, but whether it's a story or whether it's an intervention or whether it's a conversation or a question, it's like, it's what they see. That's the thing that matters.
Yeah. And that's why for me, it's I wonder if people have clocked on yet, but we'll find out. That's, yeah. I mean, I think for me, my therapy model is person-centered. So there was no techniques and all this kind of stuff. So it was always that human-to-human connection. It was, and for me, person-centered therapy was a lot about the relationship and relational depth. So that's always been a thing. That's always been the place that I've come from. I know that really matters. But yeah, there was another level to it. Like, there wasn't that thing around, like now it's that thing of I know that every human being has everything they already need within them. So the only barrier to that is me seeing it, like, as a human being, right? And that's the same for my clients. It's like, and so I'm going into that space knowing that is always the possibility, that I am on the raft with you and we could go up to the edge and jump off at any time and explore all the possibilities. And I think it felt like a lot harder work in a way, trying to create this relationship. The onus felt a lot more on me in therapy. You know, especially at the beginning. And now it's more a space of co-creation.
Yeah.
And I've really been able to let go of all the shoulds and all this stuff that I used to kind of take into a space with me. And I can see the impact that has when I'm working and building relationships with clients now, how very different it feels in that space. And I do both still, like coaching and therapy, and I've invented my own approach, like intertwining the two things.
Coaching,
that's the one. But it always comes back to relationship. It's always about human to human connection, right? Like, and when I look back in my life, it's not been any technique or anything that's made the biggest difference to me. The biggest difference has always been made by a human being that's been able to support me with love and understanding and reflect back to me what they see in me. They're the places, when I was reflecting on this, it was like, they're the spaces where it's made the biggest difference to my life. So yeah.
It's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking, I was definitely taught as part of my training as a therapist that, you know, the client has the resources within them and all of that. And I think I understood that conceptually, but that actually then was at odds with this sense of my intervention is the thing that does the change.
Yeah.
So yeah, as much as I would, you know, on one level believe my clients were okay, there was some level of, well, they need my intervention to actually be okay. And what changed for me, I think, was similar to you. Like, well, really, when I start to see it for myself, when I worked so much on this, what I used to call or still can call a core belief of I'm not good enough in myself. I did so many bloody interventions on it myself and with other people, and nothing seemed to shift the fucking thing. And then when I started, when I was doing my coaching training, I remember just waking up one day and I remember thinking about it and being like, I just don't feel not good enough anymore. That's weird. And what had changed really is I'd seen the bullshit. I'd seen through it. I'd seen that wasn't true. And it was when I started to notice stuff like that in myself that I then started to see, oh, now I see my clients have everything. Like, I really began to see, actually, there's nothing wrong with you. You just think there is. And I don't mean that in a kind of, because that almost sounds like it's the problem with the just modifier. It sounds like it's really easy. Just stop thinking there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. No.
But it's like, it makes sense for them to believe there's something wrong with them because that's how they see it. But it is almost, although it's not easy, it is as simple as you've got it all within you. We just need to work together so that you can see that's not true.
Yeah.
And that doesn't rely on magic powers I have and magic interventions. It might involve me dancing around or telling a story or doing whatever the fuck to help you.
Dance around.
I do a lot of theatre actually when I'm like, I do a lot of like spatial stuff, so I'm like jumping around and pointing at weird and I don't know how I'm going to do with online work so well if we start doing group stuff, because I definitely get a lot of value from jumping around the room and being able to like spatially act out metaphors, so that would be fun.
Love it. Oh, I love it. Yes, I need to book in a session just to see that. Oh, love it. Absolutely love it. So when I was listening to you talking, I was kind of seeing this journey from a place of doing, I do this, to a place of it's about the being. Yeah.
125%.
Yeah. And I'd say my journey has been similar.
Yeah.
It's changed from a doing to a being process. And that's a really magical process.
Tell me what that means. What that means to you in terms of your journey, how that looks.
So I think when my journey started, it was all about all these things that I need to do to fix myself and undo all the shitty parts of myself and all the things that were wrong with me, rather than being a human being. It was all about the outside stuff. So it was also outside stuff. It was all stuff that I could do, like, fixing this and fixing that. And most of those things were outside of me. So it was kind of a why focused thing, or why are all these things happening that are outside of me? So my focus was around everything that I couldn't potentially control. And that was when I was in like victim mode. And then it slowly started to shift to, actually, it's about my being. It's about where I started in the first place and removing all of those things rather than adding all those things on. So these were all these tools and this, and I need to add all these things onto me. I need to be like this. I need to earn some self-esteem or some confidence, go buy it from somewhere. I don't know. I don't have any of these things. I'm lacking. But then it was kind of being, which was removing all the barriers to the things I already had. And I've always had and will always have. And like, that was a long journey, going from that space of adding all these things that I thought I was lacking. And being for me is knowing that I was never lacking and never will be.
I love the way you phrased that about not needing something different, but I forget how you phrased it, but like the barriers, like getting through the barriers, dropping the barriers.
Yeah, removing them all.
Removing the
obstacles,
barriers.
right? Obstacles to myself. That's what they were. Obstacles to my true self.
Yeah, and that resonates for me a lot. There was something else I was going to talk about in terms of the difference of, for me, for therapy and coaching, but I think, yeah, for me, I had an idea as well that therapy was about the kind of the past. Like when I used to work a lot, the idea of, oh, you've got to go back to the past and deal with the root of it, and that coaching was about not doing that, and coaching was about just forward facing. And I even had a client come to me before who said, which at the time it just kind of perpetuated my belief, saying, well, I went to a life coach and started talking to her, and she said, you really need to go to see a therapist.
I love that. I love that. That's just it. Yeah. That's yeah. No.
Yeah, but of course this again just perpetuated my belief, and I don't see it like that anymore. I mean, I have found with some people, like what I found for some people, looking at the past can help give them insight into why they do what they do now. And sometimes that insight can make them realize, oh, you mean I do that because of my mum, and my mum's no longer around to do that. Oh, so I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But equally, people would do like the almost the opposite, which was the same for me, which was, oh, well, I'm like that because my mum did that, or my dad did that, or because I got bullied at school, whatever, and that's why I'm like this. And what's inherent in that is, and that can't change.
Yep.
Or what I would do with the intervention side of things was, let's keep going back to that and talking to that young child, and if we do that enough and you feel okay about that, when we come back to now, the problem will disappear. And sometimes it would, but what I realize now is that sometimes this is how it looks to me anyway. In doing that enough, the person would then either have an insight, or that would give them some sort of permission to try and be different, to practice being different. They would see something which would allow them to change their behavior. Yeah. But for people like me, I would just be hoping it was almost like a magic pill. It's like, okay, I've done that intervention on the past, so then hopefully I go into this, when I think about this situation, I feel like fine and confident, and I can go in to this situation I've been worrying about, and all the anxiety's gone. And that failed miserably every time. So I just go, oh, I just need to go back to the past again and have another look.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the whole, because therapy is seen as it deals with the past. Which like, I'm not going to stop somebody talking about the future. And same in coaching. You're not going to go, sorry, I'd like to stop you there. You spoke about yesterday, not allowed to do that. Okay, stop that shit.
Well, that's what I imagine coaches did. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Well, that's about your childhood. We're not going there. No. This is strictly coaching.
Yeah, that's going to cost you a lot more money. But I guess I struggle, and that's my stuff, and I own that. With all this, this deals with the past, and this deals with this, and it's like things just weave into each other. That's how life works. Life isn't that, like, doesn't have those fucking clean lines to kind of go, well, this is the past and this is the future and this is what I deal with. It's like, it's the whole picture.
I agree. And that's why, to me, to be honest, the real difference between therapy and coaching is really there is no difference. They're all just fucking labels.
Yes, the person that's facilitating it, that's the difference.
Or at least to maybe a bit controversial, when it actually fucking works, there's no difference.
Oh,
burn!
Ouch!
But exactly, it's like, in all seriousness, to what you spoke about, like, how do you compartmentalize? If someone believes the issue is because they were bullied at school, or because the issue is to do with their childhood, then that's the way they're seeing it, and they need help to see that, because obviously that, how do I put this? I'm trying to think of some examples. So either I think that's the problem and it's not, so we need to come back to the present to look at how that's playing out in the present, or the problem is that because, say, they keep thinking about the past, and they are literally stuck, up in their heads. Either way, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me to be like, well, we can't do that. I mean, it might be some level of education, like, kind of basically saying it doesn't really work like that, or we need to look here to be able to resolve this kind of issue. But to be like, sorry, you can't see me, if you're gonna talk about that, or you need to see someone else. That doesn't make sense to me anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That doesn't make sense to me either. Like, if somebody had said to me, honestly, like when I first started this journey, like, because I truly believed I was a victim of all the things that I'd been through. Like, the reason I was who I was and what I was is because of all the things that I had been through. And if somebody had come along and kind of gone, that's not true in the first instance, I would have just punched him in the face. It's just like, but I think that's the thing, right? It's like, that's why I understood at the time. And that's what a lot of the people that I work with, that's their first understanding when they come to me, is that this is how it works, right? All the things that I go through make me who I am right now.
Yeah.
And I guess you need to see something different, and you need to be in that space where it's safe enough to explore something completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else you'd want to say about therapy, coaching, the differences or non-differences?
I would say find the fit that works for you. That, for me, is like one of the keys to it. Because in a relationship, it's like, it's a choice. Like, just because you've gone to one, because I hear this a lot from people where they've had a terrible experience. And it's like, all therapists are like this, all coaches are like this. And it's like, experiment. You don't just have to be like, find the person that you resonate with, that feels right, that relationship in that first instance, because that is really essential to being able to create change and to feel safe enough and to create that process of trust. And that both can be phenomenally powerful. So it's like, yeah, I love both. What can I say?
No, I agree 100%. I think the connection is the most important thing. I think if you, and from both sides, because for me, if somebody really believes I can help them and they trust me, then I'm more likely to be able to help them, because they're going to be open to it. Because if we need to dive into the stuff they're most scared about, or they're most even ashamed about, then they're not going to want to do that with just anybody.
No.
And at the same time, like, if I feel then connected to them, I'm going to want to help them. I'm going to want to champion them. I'm going to want to go that extra mile to help them see something and get where they want to get to. Like, and if that connection is not there, then I'm not going to feel that way. So yeah, it absolutely needs to be, a connection is, to me, it's paramount. And it's why I say to clients, when, like, once we spend some time together, we're going to know whether we're a good fit or not.
Yeah. That's why it's a discovery, right? I think the beginning part of the journey is a discovery. Like, is the fit working both ways? Yeah, it's and I think that's really, really important.
Cool. So, episode 1, done and dusted.
Yes. We rock. Version 2. Done.
Over and out.
You've been listening to the Notcast podcast, Life, Love, Misery and Deep Shit, with your TheraCoach hosts,
Amy Dave
and David Bird.
Amy is a transformative spiritual and self-love coach and therapist who takes people on a powerful journey towards self-love and personal transformation. She empowers her clients to discover the truth of who they really are, their true purpose, and the truest expression of themselves, whilst enabling them to navigate life and its challenges with ease, grace, and above all, love. Create relationships that rock their world and let go of the toxic shit that holds them back. You can connect with Amy on her Facebook at facebook.com/amy.dave11. That's ami.dave11.
David is a transformative coach and hypnotherapist who guides his clients on a journey of self-exploration and transformation to smash the shit out of their mental stumbling blocks and send their emotional baggage packing, helping them to get back in the driver's seat, create a more powerful, loving connection to life, and unleash onto the world their bright, shining light of authentic give-a-fuckness. You can connect with David at his website, dbch.co.uk. That's dbch.co.uk.
The Not